At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 300 programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Monday, June the 23rd. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, he's produced the program. Let's get the week off to a flying start. That requires your participation. So if you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get on the air, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 86. 26, so Hamilton, Ontario native Shea Gilgeous-Alexander becomes the 11th Canadian to win an NBA championship, a dream season with a ball wrapped up on it last night. Regular season leading scorer, the regular season MVP, the playoff MVP, and now, of course, with a title. There's only been 3 players to accomplish those 3 feats in the same season, so he joins pretty illustrious company. Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I mean, it's pretty remarkable stuff. Anyway, the Tally 10, the 97th edition, in the books. Let's start on the women's side. Kate Baisley, I mean, what do you say? So she's a professional marathoner, but she set a course record, good conditions for running the Tally 10 yesterday. She completes the course in 53 minutes and 42 seconds, beating Ann Johnson's 2019 time of 54.25, and actually finished second this year. So that's 9 wins of the Tally 10 for Kate Baisley. It's 5 in a row for her. So incredible stuff. And on the men's side, Levi Moulton, in his first Tally 10, victorious. He's also the athletics coach for Team NL for the upcoming Canada Summer Games, so congratulations to everyone who participated. That's a pretty grueling race. All right, so bad weekend if you're a Jays fan. I don't, get into the business of it's bad omen or what have you, but when you drop a series to the team that has the worst record in the American League, ugh. So that was the Chicago White Sox, of course. And then today concluded the longest game in professional baseball history. So between the Pawtucket Red Sox and the Rochester Red Wings, 33 innings, took 8 hours and 25 minutes playing time, played over the course of 2 days. So it began in April, the 18th of April, and finished on June 23rd, 1981. Imagine 33 innings. Some people think baseball's slow. 33 innings would feel pretty long, wouldn't it? Okay. All right, so Canada men's soccer at the CONCACAF Gold Cup. Over the weekend, a 1-1 draw with Curaçao. They're the 19th ranked team in the world. We're the 30th ranked team, so that's obviously disappointing. We're still in the driver's seat to win the pool, but yeah, not great. That said, there's been some big soccer competitions in the recent past. So the Olympics last year, the North America World Cup coming next year, Summer Games this year. Soccer registration in the province up about 20%. That's a huge spike. So there's some 15,000 soccer players playing at the youth level, but a 20% spike in just one season. And soccer registration has always been pretty robust, even more so this year. Okay. Like I mentioned many times, you never know what's going to pique the interest of the listener and or draw the ire of the listening public. The St. John's landmark sign, which is going to be part of the legacy of the Canada Summer Games, you know the deal. City Council approved the expenditure of $85,000 for a sign that's going to be 6 feet high and 38 feet wide, illuminated letters, all the rest. For some people, it's the cost. But for the vast majority of people I see commenting on it on social media, it's the location. I don't know if Council has time to reconsider, but the pushback in some corners is furious. Now, again, you never know what's going to get people going, but that sign is really getting people going, at least on my social media feed. There was one person put it quite well, and I'll just paraphrase what this fella, I'll just say John, wrote. So it's talking about the fact that Bannerman has this refreshingly unplugged vibe, and it feels intentional. And that's kind of what I was thinking, but I didn't know how to say it. And I think he's absolutely right. It just seems like a bizarre location, whether it be because the limited amount of eyeballs it will draw, whether it be for residents or visitors alike. But yeah, Bannerman Park, it just does not feel like the right place for that particular sign. And of course, I'm a cost kind of concerned tax-paying citizen here in the city, but I see probably a ratio of 10 to 1 complaints. Location versus cost. Anyway, if that's something you'd like to talk about. We can do it. All right, it's the last week of school. Don't know how much is going to be accomplished this week, but hey, there you go. Now it becomes, and it's kind of counterintuitive. You think during the school year would be when all the hard work is taking place, but really over the course of the summer, critically important to be absolutely prepared for next year, whether it be with modernization of curriculum or whatever the case may be. And now in the most recent provincial budget, there was about $20 million set aside to fill 400 new positions. 275 of those would be teachers, guidance counselors, administrators, and the rest will be teaching assistants. Let's see if they can get it done in short order, because you know the deal as much as I do. Come September, inevitably, there will be some of those positions not filled. Some children will go to school without their permanent homeroom teacher in place. So obviously a big concern. In addition to that, I had an interesting conversation with Dr. David Gill, professor at Memorial University's Faculty of Education, about a story that I spoke to last week regarding a research paper from the MIT's Media Lab. And it's about generative artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. Now, for many people listening, it's probably something that you don't consider, you don't use it, you don't think about it, but the fact of the matter is, just about everything we see and feel and touch these days has some component of artificial intelligence involved. Whether or not we know it, it's there. The issue here is how quickly it's being incorporated or utilized by students. And I don't know how young some of these students might be, but I would suggest, given how fun it can be and just how mind-bendingly quick you can produce a paper, a song, an essay, you got to figure that most everybody's had some exposure to it. The concern here is what it means for the future of critical thinking and even brain activity. Just for a quick reminder. So they had 54 subjects. This has not been yet peer reviewed, but the MIT's Media Lab, as Dr. Gill said, is the platinum standard. So they were supposed to write an SAT essay. One group using ChatGPT, one using Google, and one with nothing at all. I won't dig too deep into it again today, but when they measured brain activity, very little going on for those using ChatGPT, a little more for those using Google, and extremely active for those who were using nothing at all. So they talk about the ownership of the essay itself to be able to replicate it upon command, and only the group that just used their own brain were able to do anything that remotely looks like how we used to learn in the past. Now, I know, I walked uphill both ways to school, not that kind of stuff, but this is still relatively new for most. So the concern is that it'll be far too easily accessed by folks to complete academic work. Just think about it. If you are able to simply produce something that might have taken you a couple of evenings sitting at the kitchen table to produce an essay worth submitting, versus hit the keyboard and in seconds flat have it done for you, what do you think people are going to do? Taking the easy way out, taking the shortcut, there's a lot of human nature involved in that. But I think at the school level in particular, we've got to be really mindful of what that means. Because eventually, and hopefully this won't be the case, everything we do will be produced by an algorithm. Doesn't really bode well for the ability to critically think, to identify accuracy versus dis and misinformation and all the rest that goes with it. So I wonder what the school boards, the department is going to consider on that front. And we can talk about anything inside the world of school, including the stories that are piling in endlessly regarding families who have a child who's been assessed but are now awaiting speech therapy. I read one this morning and it's just absolutely heartbreaking. This family pretty much says that kindergarten and grade 1 have been lost. Absolutely nothing accomplished for their child because they need speech therapy. Do not have the resources to dip into their pocket and go to the private sector. They need it supplied in school. The problem here is that so many more children are in need of this type of therapy, but the number of speech language pathologists working in the school system in particular hasn't changed for 30 years. It's really time to get with the times there, because if we're losing years of school for something like this, that's a massive problem. There's also a disconnect. We've heard from speech pathologists who would like to work in the public sector, but they say there's no jobs. Then NL Health Services tells us that there's 5 jobs posted and no one has applied. One said posting with incentives has been up since 2023. So which is it? Because it can't be both. Just one second, I'll get a sip of coffee. We're back. Jonathan Hickman in the news, and thankfully so. Myself and Jonathan Hickman have known each other for most of our lives. His story is as old as his birth. He was born with an issue regarding his kidneys. Thankfully, his sister donated one, and now he's leading a full and fruitful life. Talking about the fact that we need to do more for people to be aware of the possibility to be an organ or tissue donor. Canadian Institutes for Health Information says there are 1,929 people in Canada that received a donated kidney in 2024. That same year, 2,922 were on a waitlist for a kidney. 82 people died by waiting to receive a kidney. In this province, the numbers are woefully low. Okay, see here, there was only 5 kidney donated last year in this province. Or, pardon me, fewer than 5. What that accurate number is, I'm really not sure. So we know the process. You have to say that you're willing to be an organ and tissue donor via MCP. And then importantly, to make your intentions known to your family. Then there's the whole concept of having to opt in, like we have in this province, versus you're presumed to be an organ and tissue donor, like in Nova Scotia, where they changed the legislation. It was tabled in this province, but it did not make its way through the House of Assembly in the spring sitting. If we go to an election and it has not been passed, you have to go back and start from scratch. So Nova Scotia, you're in. Unless you say to the province, no, I do not want to be an organ tissue donor. And that's up to you if you don't want to be. People may have different reasons as to why they don't want to be on that list. But in this province, how many people listen to the program this morning who have not made their intentions known via MCP and their family would be more than willing to be on the donor list? But you got to do it. It really seems quite unnecessary that 82 people died in this country last year waiting for a kidney. In Ontario, there was a pocket of the province that they put the box to check to say that you were indeed willing to be an organ tissue donor on your tax return. Consequently, a couple of million additional donors were added to the list. So if you're listening to this morning and you think that you would be willing to do it, please take the next step and do exactly that. And Jonathan Hickman, he's been a great advocate on that front, and we're happy to try and share his message. Now, the opt-in, opt-out. This province, apparently, we're simply not prepared, logistically speaking, to accomplish that yet. But it all begins with amendments to the Act. Then we need to be actually prepared to be able to do it in this province, which I've been told many times we're not. So there you go. I guess running a close second to concerns about the St. John's landmark sign, cost and or location, is the decision offered last week about the recreational food fishery. I get why people get frustrated by this. You know, while GFO said they were able to more than double the quota for northern cod, same old restrictions in place for those who like to get out on the water, get a feed. 39 days, 5 per person, 15 per boat. Even though that 15 per boat is a suggestion, and if people are going to abuse it, DFO says they have the ability to rein it back even further. Okay. What they talk about is just how different it is in the rest of Atlantic Canada. And that's a fair concern to bring forward. If you can go out 7 days a week and the daily bag limit is 15 versus 5, then you have to beg the question, why? Why is it so drastically different here? Where you have to be given permission, and restricted permission at that, when compared to our brothers and sisters around the rest of Atlantic Canada. Adding salt to that particular wound, that summer feeling, is that I get the pilot program for the tour boat operators. It could be beneficial to their business, but at the same time, and welcome to all the visitors. Nothing like an economic shot in the arm of out-of-province cash. While locals have to wait for Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and hope the weather cooperates, we get to watch the visitors on a tour boat able to execute the fishery 7 days a week. So some of the emails I got are absolutely people boiled over, furious about the decision this year, and I understand why, if that's something you want to talk about. We can do it. All right, let's bounce around to a couple more. So, whenever the Seniors Advocate or the Auditor General or the Child and Youth Advocate bring forward concerns or release a report, we're happy to have them on to elaborate on what they've seen, what they see on the ground, and recommendations they're making. Same thing when it comes to the Seniors Advocate. All right. The issue here is some of the work that was done by the Advocate as old as 2023 regarding home care support. You know the story as well as I do. People who are struggling to get the required number of hours to do what is ever necessary to keep them in their own home later and longer in life. We know the cost-benefit analysis. It certainly costs way more to be in a care home, long-term care or otherwise, than it would be to be in your own home with just a few additional hours of support. Quote coming directly from Susan Walsh, who's welcome to join us on the show. Overall, I'm pleased that most recommendations included in this status report are advancing. However, I remain quite concerned that there is no evidence that our recommendations from the 2023 report to make home support more financially accessible to seniors are progressing. Seniors are struggling to access home care support services and are grappling with the dilemma of how to pay for those services. When a senior is forced to move from their home into a care facility to have their care needs met, we have failed them. She's not wrong. In addition to that, I don't know if there's any other province like this. Maybe there is. I haven't had a chance to look from coast to coast to coast. But many provinces in the country, they pay for your home care. They've done the cost-benefit analysis. They know to have you in an institutional setting, like a long-term care home, it costs more. Some seniors will be less happy, further removed from their family and their friends. So, number one, we are charging seniors. And number two, people are struggling just to get enough hours to keep them at home. So, with Susan Walsh saying she's disappointed that recommendations from the 2023 report are not progressing as she would like, and the final quote is, we have failed them. Fair enough, Miss Walsh is welcome to join us on the show. All right, what do we got here? All right, a couple of quickies. I don't know how we're doing on the phone yet, but I guess we'll find out. So, leading up to the Canada Summer Games, one of the concerns that tourists and visitors will have, and this is a long-time concern, is the inability or the affordability of a rental car. So apparently Carl Smith and others working with the Games have worked with the rental car agencies. Looks like there's going to be around 200 additional vehicles. That'll still make it really tight in the world of accessibility, but that's a good thing. In addition to that, this is not to insinuate that one thing is safer or better than another. You spend your hard-earned money as you see fit. And this is talk about getting a taxi and or using rideshare. So in the United States, Uber and Lyft have been obliged by law to release a lot of data. Some of this is specifically around how many of their drivers, how many reported incidents of assault, physical and or sexual. We know there's been a bunch of rideshare drivers, and yes, some cabbies have been brought to taken to task in the criminal justice system, no doubt about it. But at least we know, and that gets reported. The rideshare apps and their companies, they're not releasing the data in Canada. And there are some well-documented convictions of sexual assault by rideshare drivers. So, people make the argument, well, the money spent on a traditional cab stays here. You won't see Uber sponsoring your kid's soccer team, all those types of things. Then the difference between needing to get a criminal background check and a vulnerable sector check as a cab driver versus not having to get it as an Uber driver. They get the criminal background check, but not the vulnerable sector check, which is pretty important if we're talking about sexual assault and ensuring that we know exactly who's getting these licenses to operate. And then the concerns about some of the fakes. People out there saying they're Uber. If someone comes up to you, pulls up to the sidewalk and says, do you need a ride home? I'm an Uber driver. You have to book it through the app. That person is probably not an Uber driver. So be aware on that front. And I'll keep putting it out there. Marine Atlantic pledges made by the Prime Minister on the campaign trail to cut the fees by somewhere around half. Let's get that acted upon, because we do know there's something called the Canada Strong Pass. Where I had it opened up here a little while ago. There it is. Just to remind folks, the Canada Strong Pass. So, free admission to Parks Canada, discounts on overnight stays with Parks Canada, reduced fees for admission to museums and galleries, and this is the big one, free and discounted travel with Via Rail. So, if we are going to put that sort of support forward for VIA, we know our reliance on Marine Atlantic, obviously, as an island. So where's some action on that front? Happy to throw it out there. I'll get a bunch of people talking about how we doing out there, Dave. I had a few more I wanted to get through. So it looks like Canada is set to formally join the European Union in the 1.25 trillion effort to rearm Europe. We talk about 70% of our defense items are procured in the United States, and we understand the reliability or the lack thereof with our most important ally, so that's going to happen. NATO meeting is right around the corner too, where it looks like it's set in stone that there'll be a move from 2% of GDP to 5% of GDP on defense spending. There are some fine details that we can dig in there. And then, of course, the world watches the heightened tensions in the Middle East. Not that the Americans weren't involved prior, but now they're absolutely involved. Dropping the bunker busters on 3 different locations in Iran. What's next? No idea. The Iranians, of course, say that they are going to strike back. In what form or fashion, we have no earthly idea. And if you want to talk about it, we can do it. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That means you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Speaking on line number 1. Good morning, Molly. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. I'm just calling back about the speech-language pathologist issue.
Let's go.
So, as you mentioned, the announcement was made there by Bernard Davis for 400 new positions, and no speech-language pathologists were listed in that. I have yet to hear back from anyone in government. It's been very frustrating. I continue to send emails. I've sent along parent stories that have been sent to me, and it just continues to fall on deaf ears.
It's hard to understand why. I mean, even if government does a slow or a poor job on recruiting through a variety of positions, healthcare and otherwise, if the number of speech-language pathologists working for NL Health Services has not changed in 15 years, despite the fact referrals have doubled in schools, the numbers haven't changed in 30 years. I must be missing something here. At the same time, Molly, we're told that there are no public sector jobs available, and then a representative of NL Health Services says there are 5 jobs posted, but no one's applied. One is as old as 2023, apparently has some pretty enticing incentives involved. It's hard to understand how both could be true.
Yeah, so I actually want to speak to that as well.
I figured.
So all those positions are in Western Newfoundland. So there's one in Port aux Basques, one in Stephenville, and the issue is seniority doesn't transfer. So if you were to take one of those jobs with the end goal of ending up in town, taking that job would not benefit you at all. So people are more incentivized to take a casual position in town because that builds seniority within the eastern region, rather than take a job in Port aux Basques. Because if your end goal is to end up in St. John's, that's not going to benefit you at all. And for that Port aux Basques job, I actually contacted them and offered to do it as a hybrid position because I saw that it had been open for so long. Like many people, my life is here, my partner's here. I can't just move to Port aux Basques. So I said I would do it hybrid. I said I could go over every 5 or 6 weeks and do a week of in-person assessing or whatever, and then kind of do the rest virtually. And they were not interested in that proposition. So I think that they are not being very transparent with that. I think that interview with NLHS was meant to kind of deflect from the actual issue, which is that the wait lists at the Janeway, which is in the eastern region, are 2 years long. Filling a job in Port aux Basques is not going to do anything to correct that issue. So I think that they were trying to kind of deflect attention and maybe kind of mitigate the issue at hand by kind of bringing up another issue. And yes, those positions in rural should be filled, but I think that they were just trying to bring that up to make it seem as though the issue that we've been talking about, which is the wait list here, I just think it was meant to kind of deflect rather than actually address what was happening.
Fair comment. Again, I kind of get confused sometimes with the political decision-making versus policy decision-making. Even if we don't like what we're told, can someone belong to the government, whether it be at NLHS and or the Department of Education, explain to me how if the demand and the referrals have increased dramatically, both in the health services and in the Department of Education, yet the numbers of pathologists has not changed? Is there somewhere a lack of understanding of just how critically important this is? I mean, if I hear from a family that says their child basically has thrown away kindergarten and grade 1 because they don't have the therapy that the child needs and has been assessed to need, there's something missing to me. So what is it? If there's people willing to take it on as trained, experienced, professional speech language pathologists, why aren't we hiring them? Why not?
It makes no sense to me at all. And it wouldn't be that many. It wouldn't be that much money to hire, say, 10 new speech pathologists. You could do that for $800,000 a year. So, the solution is not. It's not a $10 million solution. For less than $1 million, this can very easily be solved. And for some reason, they're just continuing not to prioritize it, despite families speaking out and clinicians speaking out, and everyone at government just seems to have, I don't know, it honestly feels like people have something against speech-language pathologists at this point, because it seems as though every other area is being addressed and we just continue to be ignored. And like you said, the lack of increase in positions in the school board since 1996 is absolutely crazy when we look at the way that needs have changed, the way that our population has changed, and the fact that those positions just remain stagnant. And I think it's 40 speech pathologists cover 200 schools.
Yeah.
So it just, the numbers don't make sense at all. And now with this new announcement saying 400 new positions are being added, I think a lot of speech pathologists were hopeful that some of those positions would be allocated to SLP. But instead we see more guidance counselors being added. And that's great, but every school already has a guidance counselor. So like I said before, you have SLP split between 4 or 5 schools, and they're still not getting any more positions put in. And no one is commenting on this. Like, you can't get an answer from anyone in government, despite parents saying, like, we've been begging for this for years. So yeah, I'm kind of at a loss for words, honestly.
Yeah, me too. We'll see if we can't get something from the minister responsible as to why, if we're hiring 400 additional positions in the school system, that speech language pathologists aren't one of the disciplines that have been identified, because I have no idea. And just for folks, this one family, and I've got dozens of families that have sent me similar emails, and there's a different level of therapy and support required depending on who you are, where you are, what your actual issue is. But for this one child, and that's probably the most heartbreaking story, it's not only the speech issues, but it's the inability to follow simple directions. They're getting and gleaning absolutely nothing from being in school, other than the fact that they get to play with their buddies at recess, play with their buddies at lunchtime. Insofar as being taught anything, they can't grasp it because they don't have the pathology support. So even if you can't be told, okay, put your crayons there, lay your paper down here, if they can't follow along with that, what do we think we're accomplishing in school? We've just thrown away 2 years of that kid's school life.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing is, where speech language pathologists have such a large caseload, a lot of the time they're told to kind of prioritize the speech cases. So like the kids who can't pronounce things, the kids who have trouble being understood because of articulation things. And then the language disorders just get pushed back on the teachers who are not equipped to deal with language disorders. They're classroom teachers. So like, I have a kid I see in private. She's diagnosed with a developmental language disorder, and was told that there will be no SLP services for her at school because she's basically not, her problems are not severe enough to warrant being on the caseload. And again, this is not the speech language pathologist's fault. She's kind of forced to make these decisions based on caseload size. But if it were not for this child's parents putting her in private with me, so she's been seeing me in private for 2 years now, like a lot of difficulty both expressing herself, understanding directions. She has trouble with prepositions. She has trouble with vocabulary. And if her parents were not in the situation to afford private, she would not have made any progress. And again, kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2 will kind of be wasted, because if you can't follow simple directions, if you can't express yourself, you're not having academic success in any subject. So it's horrifying to see, really, like the kind of kids that are being pushed off the school caseloads because of size. And yeah, I really want someone to give a response to this, because I feel as though it's been 2 years now of me trying to get someone to explain, and they just continue to ignore. And I feel like they're going to continue to ignore for as long as they possibly can. So I do wonder kind of what the next step is, because it feels like they are just going to keep on ignoring the emails, keep on ignoring kind of the radio interviews, the CBC articles. And I don't know how to kind of get over this hump and get them to actually notice.
I mean, on top of the lack of learning, these families are also reporting, because their child is struggling to express themselves and unable to follow instructions. What do you think is going to happen? They're getting picked on, and they're confused. Yeah. And so they're sad. They don't want to go to school, and I don't blame them, because if you have something that can be dealt with via therapy and you can't get it, and so consequently not learning a bloody thing and being picked on mercilessly in some cases, that's a desperate set of circumstances. Molly, I really appreciate your time. Would you like to say anything else this morning?
No, that's good. Just, encourage parents to kind of keep making their voices heard, and hopefully we'll eventually get a response from someone in government.
And they're welcome to do it on this program. Appreciate your time, Molly. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, boy, oh boy. Let's take a break. When we come back, Beaton's there to talk about the recreational food fishery. Then we're going to talk about the Kenmount Terrace School issues, not only timeline for construction, but what it means in Larkhall and Learysbrook as well. Barry also wants to chime in on the food fishery. And then we're going to talk about the volunteer drive for the Canada Summer Games. Plenty of concerns coming from plenty of corners on that front. That conversation and whatever you want to talk about after this, don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Beaton. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Best kind today, thanks. How about you?
Not too bad, I guess, boy. Just hanging in there, I guess.
Attaboy.
No, I was going through online last night. I noticed the Minister of Fishery in Ottawa had it posted online there. Nova Scotia, PEI, and New Brunswick is allowed to go out and catch 15 fish for a person for 7 days a week. Newfoundlanders is only allowed to go out, if you've got 3 men in a boat, you're only allowed 5 fish a person. So I'm wondering why is it that they can go out and catch all that? We fellas only got to stick with what they say we got to stick with.
Yeah, but that's the actual rules in the rest of Atlantic Canada. So DFO sets the rules for them too, but boy, compare the two set of circumstances. 15 per person, 7 days a week versus good old Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Don't get any more than your 5. Don't dare go out on Friday. I mean, there's no good reason. Consider the fact they just more than doubled the quota for the commercial northern cod fishery, and fair enough. But not one iota of change this year again for the recreational food fishers around here. So I can't answer your question, but it's a good one.
Yeah, no, there one, Jeff Reagan was Minister of Fishery. I don't know if you can remember it or not. I had a meeting with him in Gander. Guess we were fighting to get the food fishery open at the time. And I said to him, I said, how come? I said, Nova Scotia can go out. And I said, every day of the week, I said, catch what fish they want. But I said, we're only allowed to go out and catch 5 fish a person. If it's 15 men in the boat, you're still only allowed 15 fish. And I said, they can go out and catch all they want. Oh, he said, there's a reason. I said, what is the reason? He said, Nova Scotia fish, he said, got lots of worms in it. I said, you bloody fool. I said, our fish got worms in it too. So I said, don't use that as an excuse. But I said, I can tell you your problem. I said, you're from Nova Scotia. And I said, Nova Scotia can do what they like. And Newfoundlanders got to take what you give them.
That's about the size of it.
And I don't think that's right. And I don't think that, I don't know why the Newfoundlanders don't get off of their butts and kick up a stink about it. I mean, right is right and wrong is no man's right. So, we should fight for what belongs to us too. The man above put the fish in the water, not only just for Nova Scotia, for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it a fair bit on this program. We've got a couple of loud voices who join us quite frequently talking about this. We've seen petitions even tabled in Parliament that got zero traction. So I don't know what it's going to take. And plus, even if there was some sort of legitimate answer beyond, well, the fish off Nova Scotia have worms in them. I mean, come on. Have you ever cut open a cod around here? So there's no legitimate reason that I know of. If anyone wants to fill in that blank and tell me why, and explain to me how we can more than double the commercial harvest, but not one lick of change, even in the number of days.
And it's not going to change if we don't stand up for what's right. We got to stand up for what belongs to us. I mean, I got papers. They're stacked away somewhere, but the papers that I got, that Canada got no jurisdiction inside of the 300 mile limit. Not one bit.
I think there's some documents from 1949 that would change that slightly, but I understand your point and your concern, Pete, and it frustrates me too. Like, if just how many people are not even able to get out because they work on Saturday, Sunday? How many people are rotational workers and they'll miss, say, 18 of the 39 days that are available in the first place? So there's lots of reasons why this is, I think, a bigger deal. Some people might be rolling their eyes at the radio thinking, my God, Paddy and Beaton, there's bigger stuff, there's bigger fish to fry out there, as they say. Well, for some people, this is important.
Well, you knows and I knows. I mean, our fish got worms in it as well as anywhere else. I mean, I like that what I eat and didn't see it in the fish. So, I mean, it's not killing us. So what's the big deal? What's the big deal? Give us the same opportunity that they're getting Nova Scotia, PEI, and New Brunswick. Come on, there's time to give up.
Beaton, I appreciate your time. You're 100% right, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much, my friend.
All the best.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. And this jumps off this from Gord Follett. and welcome to visitors. People from Ontario, Quebec, New York, and Paris, and anywhere else in the world can fish 7 days a week in Newfoundland and Labrador, and we wave from our wharves and our shores. Scott line number 3, say good morning to past chair of Larkhall and Larry's Brook School Councils. That's Darrell Hines. Morning, Darrell. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to follow up now since the school announcement last Tuesday, Paddy. The parents, I guess, are, we're pleased to finally see a contract award, but I think the realization is now that this is not going to be done in 18 months. I mean, while the, the formalities were ongoing on the site, I mean, some of the parents were in the back talking to the contractors, and the guy I talked to made no mistake about, this is going to be a couple of year project, and even more frustrating, he said in a joking way, he said, one of the first things we got to do move here, he says, move all these power poles and power lines and all this electrical infrastructure, he says, all in the way, which I mean, parents raised last year. I've spoken about a number of times that some of the site work and site prep and all that should have been done last year in anticipation of the contract award, but my understanding is now there's a massive amount of Newfoundland Power work got to be done there, and all that got to be factored in now and timed and everything else. So all that is disappointing, Paddy, when we had hoped to have it done, but now we're looking at 2 more school years, which brings me to the larger problem. What are we going to do? We have, 1,000 kids among those 2 buildings that are both stretched beyond their comfortable limits for classrooms and everything else. And I know at Leary's Brook, there was talk first. The school council were told they're going to lose the cafeteria and lose the library. Now, the government's moved back from that a little bit, but now we've been told they're going to take some of the larger classrooms and do what's called co-teaching, quote unquote, and have, double classes there with 2 teachers to try to mitigate some of the overcrowding. But it's all very, very concerning when our numbers continue to go up and government seems to be in denial. I mean, to the extent of the problem and what's going on,
I do know. Yeah, I mean, Sarah Studley was on the show, and of course, she's the member for the district. But what we need are answers from Minister of Infrastructure and Education, because the timeline is one thing, but what's going to continue on inside Larkhall and Leary's Brook is quite a different conversation. So, I guess there's obviously a distinct overlap. If we're building a school that can accommodate 860 students, but we've got 1,000 for sure, 1,000 minimum in the feeder system, I don't really understand how that sounds like a good idea from either the Ministry of Infrastructure and or Education.
Oh, and the minister said last week, the MHA, the study said she was, she's comfortable with what they're building. Whereas, again, if there's 1,000 in the 2 core buildings they're going to close, you're moving grades up from St. Andrews. Plus, I mean, there's a significant amount of kids go out of our zone for French immersion. All of them will come back to our building. And everyone says, we know what we're doing, and this is wonderful, and this is going to turn out great. So, I know, very frustrating, and I know after the announcement, a number of parents had emailed the Minister Davis directly with significant concerns about Larkhall and Leary's Brook, and we all got back a form letter last Tuesday night, a form email saying thanks for writing, but no detail. Never addressed any specific concerns, never spoke to any of the numbers that we quoted or significant, issues raised. So it's just so frustrating, boy. And even like last Tuesday, I mean, the last time there was a great configuration done here, there was some opportunity for public consultation, and, there was a public press release, and there was a portal parents could participate in, whereas, Minister Davis got up last week and hauled a note out of his back pocket. Next thing he announced, we're going to start sending grade 8s to one of the biggest high schools in the province. And PwC, I know because I got kids there, that's approaching 950, moving towards 1,000 children. And not every parent is comfortable with having a grade 8, in a grade 12 building. That's again getting full and significant. But again, there was absolutely no consultation. Never talked to the school councils. Never talked to the principals. Never talked to the administration. And so I don't know, Paddy, but it's getting exceptionally frustrating for parents that we see a building that's being, it's going to be delayed now. We finally admit, and it is what it is. That's what we said last year. But it's going to be built too small. And in the interim, everyone seems to be in denial about the short-term problem. And I know Rita and Jill and some of them spoke at the press conference, and they've called up and on themselves. But they have much younger kids than I do in these buildings, and the school experience, boy, it's just not good, right?
Yeah, and I mean, government told us, we did, whoever we is, did a walkthrough, I think, of both Learysbrook and Larkhill Academy, but apparently there was after-school hours. There's no way to get a sense of what it looks like and feels like in school unless you're there when the students and the staff are there. So let's have one more walkthrough, and it's too late now, obviously, because the school year is just about behind us, but it's no sense just looking at an empty building and then, checking off some boxes on your clipboard says, well, this is okay. You need to see it when it's functioning, because the operational reality... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and I know the school councils have asked for that. I know Paul Lynn was at the event last week, and Paul's asked for that on behalf of the parents. Again, there's no good going in the middle of July when there's only someone there doing a bit of painting. I mean, you need to go into these buildings and wait for the bell to ring and see the change in class and see kids eating in stairwells, eating in their desks, not able to get outside because of the lack of green space. You're absolutely right. You need to get into it. So, I mean, Dave asked for it, but again, Minister Davis in his email last week back to parents, Paddy, it was a generic email. They probably sends out 500 in them a day. Thanks for writing. We appreciate your concerns. All the very best. Bye-bye. I mean, it was never addressed anything, and it's just so incredibly frustrating because, when I came out Terrace, and I've been saying it for years, we're not a retirement community. It's all single families up here, young people. With kids and multiple, kids and their families moving in, houses are selling very quickly, new construction's going up everywhere. And, I just think there's going to be more kids show up that are not registered, because it happens every year, at Larkhill and Learysbrook, people transferring in, this kind of thing. And, where are you going to put people? And we've been saying it for a while that 600 kids is the outer limits of what's sensible, but government just seems to be in denial. And again, the MHA said last week, we have, as you said, we got 1,000 kids. We closed in 2 buildings. There's 1,000 children going summer, and that excludes the French immersion, excludes the grades from St. Andrews, and we're building a school for 850. And this makes sense to people. I mean, it's incredulous to parents and folks up here. We just don't understand it.
I appreciate your time, Darrell. Off I go.
Okay, appreciate it.
All the best. Bye-bye. It's Darrell Hines, past chair of school councils, both Larkhill and Learysbrook. Before we get to the break, let's go to line number 6. Mary, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I found a set of keys between Costco and Coleman's during the weekend.
Okay.
And if anyone lost them, they could phone you guys, and they got the information there. My number. Fair enough. Yeah, Dave has your number. So Mary picked up a set of keys between Cohen's and Costco over the course of the weekend. If you lost yours in that area, they're probably in Mary's or on Mary's table. I appreciate this, Mary. Hopefully we get them back to the owner. You're welcome. Bye.
Bye. All right, let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 4. Barry, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Paddy, I listen to your program whenever I get the opportunity. If I'm near a radio, and I'm hearing a lot about this food fishery, and I've been thinking a lot about it. It don't make a lot of sense to me. There's people in charge of this that's coming up with these regulations. I don't think they know very much about the fishery. I think we got somewhere around in the neighborhood of 25 to 30,000 kilometers of coastline around this province.
Sounds about right.
For 500,000 people, and everyone don't eat fish, and the ones that do eat fish don't eat fish every day, and we can't take enough out of the water to have a meal when we want it. I don't believe the fishery is in that bad a state. And years ago, I fished a couple of summers back in the early 70s, and my father fished all his life, except for a few years that he went away and worked. And the first capelin that came in, the fishermen would be running with their wheelbarrows and cast nets. They'd be trying to get some capelin to get out to get a few days handline. So they get out. When they get the capelin, they get maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days, and as the fish started feeding on the capelin, the handline, the amount they get on the handline would taper off to the point where it wasn't worth going out. And not because there was no fish there. Then they gave up the end line and put the cod traps in the water. So the fish was there, but just not. So the time of the year now that we got to go out and get our fish is when there's a lot that we're capable. And we can't even go out and put a hook in the water. It seems to me like it's more of a case of the government wants to control us. They want us under their thumb that they can dictate everything that we can do and what we can't do. Now, I'm not against regulations and rules and stuff. In lots of cases, we need them and we should have it. But there's things that don't need to be regulated the way that it is.
I mean, I'm not a DFO scientist, and I don't think you are either, but DFO has said that the cod stock is in pretty good shape. How do I know that? Because they more than doubled the cod quota. So,
yeah, and I done some. Well, actually, I think I had a copy. I wrote up a letter there a couple of years ago, and there was a copy went to Fisheries Minister Joyce Murray, I think, at the time. There was a copy went to you. I just done up some estimates, and I said, well, if we had 50,000 people takes part in the food fishery, well, that's 10% of our population. And I don't think there's any more than that takes part in the food fishery in Newfoundland, but just say there is. And if they got out for 30 after 35 days, and if they got their 5 fish every day, that works out to 7.5 million fish. So at the time, the estimated harp seal population was 7.5 million. So it's 1 fish a year for a harp seal, every harp seal. And there's no concern about the seal population. So I think this year now they changed the numbers. They don't want us killing seals either. I had a seal license when I was old enough to get one, right up until a few years ago. And then you couldn't even go in a fishery office and get you had to go online. I got no computer or online stuff like that, and I'm not getting any. And I can't afford to get it anyway. What can you buy when you got to live alone in a house and keep everything going, and on a whole age pension and supplement? There's only so much you can spend. So it's 7.5 million fish. And there's no way of getting a record of knowing what the seals are what seals are taking.
We can make pretty good guesses, though.
Again, now, back when my father was, I remember when in the 1960s, first when the gallnets got around. Now, longliners might have been using them before, but first when the gallnets got around, there was father, his brother, and their cousin, and they had 4 gallnets. They started out with 4 gallnets. And they had, I don't know how much trawl they had, but they had at least, the minimum would be 1 tub of trawl a person in the boat. So that would be 3 tubs of trawl. And they go out and they'd order nets and they order trawl. Back then it was the old nylon nets. 70 to 75% of their catch would come from the nets. Now, 4 nets would be 200 fathom. A tub of trawl got 5 lines in a tub. There's 50 fathom on a line with approximately 70 hooks on a line. So that's 350 hooks times 3. 1,050 hooks didn't produce only about a third of what 4 nets was producing. So the fish was there. Now, this is the time of the year that we got to go out and get our fish when the fish is slaughtered and not eating anything. So it's not a measure of how much fish there is. And there's a lot of people, I bet you there's people now that don't even know how many hooks is on a trawl.
Oh, guaranteed.
and they got a lot to say about the fishery. But this is facts I'm giving you. And if you talk to any fisherman, they'll bear out what I'm saying. So then with this weekend things, you got shift workers. It's a slap in the face to people, healthcare workers. From nurses to LPNs to all those people. I worked in healthcare for 6 years. And all those people got to work every second weekend. A good friend of mine last year, never got out once. She works in a nursing home, in the kitchen. Between the weekends she had to work and the weekends where there was wind and maybe rain, she didn't want to go out all up with rubber clothes to go out in the rain. And never got a trip out.
Yeah, there's plenty of people who would be in a similar situation. I appreciate making time for the show, Barry. I have to get to the news break, but stay in touch.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Take care.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. When we go back, Craig's in the queue to talk about the volunteer drive for the Canada Games. Wayne's out in Trinity, I believe, talk about repairs to the church. Tommy wants to talk about the fire ban. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 5. Good morning, Craig. You're on the air.
Morning, Patty. How are you?
Top shelf today. How about you?
Not too bad. If there's any background noise, I'm on the highway driving now since you called in, so bear with me.
No problem.
I just wanted to call in expressing my frustration on application to be a volunteer at the Canada Summer Games coming up. I have filled out application online a couple of months ago. Haven't heard one thing about it since. I've volunteered all my life, especially with baseball at St. Pat's Ballpark over the last, 15 years probably. I basically lived down there in the summertime. My daughter was big involved with NL baseball to the provincial level, playing in Atlantics, Nationals, and so on and so forth. But anyway, what frustrates me is that I didn't hear anything back. So on Thursday, I think it was, or Friday, I made a post on Facebook saying how frustrated I was. Little did I know that my phone was after blowing up over the weekend. That many people after getting in contact with me saying that they filled out application online and haven't heard one thing back from Canada Games. Frustrates me very much. The other thing is I've been contacted by some volunteers who work in the office down on Waterford Bridge Road saying that they've had issues with everything down there. Some of them, people getting police clearances, notices going to junk mail, and they even went to say that it's a big undertaking. Well, people who are applying to be volunteers shouldn't have to worry about being a big undertaking, because if the powers that be did their homework, maybe they would have a little better system than what they have. I think it's gone to hell in a handbasket, to be honest with you. You got that many people trying to volunteer and not being reached out at all. The other thing is, when I listened to your program last week, I heard that government employees are getting 2 weeks off with pay to volunteer. Now that really frustrates me altogether, knowing that there's so many people out there that have filled out applications and not getting any calls at all. And over the weekend, I also found out that those government employees who are volunteering for 2 weeks and getting paid for 2 weeks to volunteer are also getting a third week, which they call the recovery period, after volunteering for 2 weeks, and also getting paid for that. That really throws me right over the edge. Like, I'm really rotted about it. I'm really poisoned about it.
Just wait, no, Craig. Did you say that? I mean, I understand the concept of provincial and City of St. John's employees who are volunteering getting paid time, but someone told you that they're getting 2 weeks on top of that to recover? Is that what you just said?
No, the 2 weeks to volunteer, getting paid for that.
Yep.
Plus, they're getting 1 week of what they call recovery time after they volunteer for the 2 weeks. I mean, it's unreal.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, just unreal. And on top of that, they've got a lot of people out of province that have volunteered to be on the Canada Games. And here we are as Newfoundlanders, and a lot of my friends who have backgrounds in volunteering have no call back. And no one can't give me an answer why we didn't get a call back. I mean, it's frustrating. I'm 61 years old. I worked in nursing all my life with Eastern Health. In the summertime, I had to apply to get annual leave and didn't even know if I was going to get annual leave. And now here's the government saying, yeah, you got 400 employees. We'll give you 2 weeks off with pay to go and volunteer. I don't know. I'm just frustrated about it, Patty. It just makes me sick to my stomach.
I hear you. I've got friends who are volunteering in the games, but when they were told via the news that some of their friends who are volunteering who happen to work for the provincial government are going to get paid to volunteer, they are pretty disgruntled. They took annual leave to volunteer. So they're eating up their own vacation time to do exactly what we're asking people to do, is volunteer at the games. So I know of one person, given the example that you talked about, the inability to get in the churn and the difficulty people are facing, I got one guy just walked away. I have another friend of mine who was going to volunteer, but since that paid leave conversation came up, they're walking away from it too. They're taking the opportunity to do something with their own holiday time that is not volunteering.
Well, that's the way I look at it too now, Paddy. Like, right now I'm retired, so it doesn't make any difference. I got all the time in the world. But when you hear that somebody is going to get paid who's volunteering hip to hip with you, and you're doing it on your own dime, wherever you got to go to, whether it's a venue in Mount Pearl or in St. John's or wherever the case might be. I mean, that's really frustrating. So what's going to happen in the future to any more events that are coming to St. John's? They're going to look for volunteers. People are just going to say, the heck with it. I'm not volunteering. What's the point of me volunteering? And somebody's going to get paid and another person is not. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. And here we are with lots of people that filled out online applications like myself and haven't heard a word back. So whether it's gone in junk mail or whether it's gone to cyberspace or wherever, the powers that be have dropped the ball on this. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't blame the volunteers that are at the centre down on Waterford Bridge Road. They're only volunteers. They do what the computer tells them to do in front of them. So I don't blame them at all. But there are people who are getting paid to run these games. And it seems like it's gone to hell in a handbasket. So that's the reason why I wanted to call in. Maybe somebody else might call in and give the same perspective of what I had.
Well, and look, I appreciate the difficulty in trying to come up with 5,000 volunteers, and I'm pretty sure that was the motivation behind this paid leave stuff, but that doesn't sit any better with you than it would prior to having some rationale offered. My wife's volunteering with the games, and she's been at meeting after meeting, and look, I have no issue with the games. I'm a big supporter of. I hope the volunteers have a good time, but there's a few things, in addition to what you're talking about, to know that officials and volunteers, if you want to go watch something else, you got to pay. I mean, come on. If I'm an official in the round robin in whatever, softball, and I'm not scheduled to officiate in the medal round, but I have to pay to go see the end result, that's not really very wise. It doesn't talk like great consideration for the official. Same thing applies to a volunteer. If I want to go watch something, in addition to where I've been volunteering for the first week of the games or whatever the case may be, let's just let them go. I mean, I don't think we're going to see these massive sellouts at all these events. So if someone wants to go and there's space in there at the pitch or in the gym or at the track and field, let's just let them go. Like, I'm kind of a bit confused by some of this stuff.
Sure, I totally agree. You know, last year at St. Pat's, we had an 18U boys national tournament down there. That was a preamble to the Canada Games. And we had Canada Games officials down there, the whole works, everything was hunky-dory, went really, really well. I'm got a nursing background, so I was the one who headed up the first aid tent down there. And I'm after doing that for many tournaments at St. Pat's over the years. And even traveled with the girls' team because my daughter played. And during tournaments, even when I was out of province or out of town, I still ended up being the go-to boy for anybody who had slight injuries or anything like that. So that's what really pisses me off, actually, knowing that I volunteered for years and you're not even getting a look in. So there it is. I don't know what else to say.
I appreciate the time, Craig. Thanks for doing it.
Thanks very much, Patty. You have a great day, and I do support the NL athletes. And go boys, go girls, go.
100%. Craig, Dave Williams wants me to put you on hold. He wants to speak to you for a second, so let's do that. All right, Craig's on hold. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Wayne, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thank you for taking my call.
No problem.
I'm a member of a fundraising committee for St. Paul's Church in Trinity Bay. And this Saturday, June the 28th at 7:30, we have an evening with Kevin Collins, who graciously has agreed to come and do a fundraising event for us to help. We need major repairs on the roof of the church. And, we're a very small congregation right now. Trinity right now is a tourist town. And reaching out to people who may be in the area at that time looking for an evening out. It'll be on Saturday, June the 28th at 7:30 at the church. And tickets are $30.
What kind of price tag do you have for the repairs that are required?
Rough estimate about $200,000, and right now we're raised about 70, and we're going to do it in 3 stages. We got 3 years to get it done, but we have to get the main roof done as, we're getting water into church. And there's a very historic church here. Of course, if you watch NTV News, every time it flashes, it shows Trinity, and the main center part of is the big church. And this church was built in 1890. It's the 3rd church on this site, right?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the church, actually. So, insofar as raising money, what's the strength of the congregation look like? Because we all see it. It was once very strong numbers in congregations and congregants, has faded over time. How about out in Trinity?
Oh, very much so. Trinity right now, as I mentioned earlier, is a historic town. We have out in the village itself in the winter months about 50 people, and all together, I guess, in the district is about 100 of us. But in the summer, the place is full. Just yesterday, there was four tour buses here at the one time, and tourism is what is keeping us going. And our church service, if we get 15 or 20 people, and one time they used to tell me it was a couple thousand. So, but Trinity had a larger population at one time. But most of the homes here now are Airbnbs and vacation homes. Right?
I mean, it's a beautiful community between the theatre company and just tourists flocking to the site. You wonder what would become of Trinity in the long term. So give us the details one more time, Wayne, for the night with Kevin Collins.
Yeah, the night with Kevin Collins is this coming Saturday at the church at 7:30 p.m. The show starts. The tickets are $30, and there's several ways if you can go do email to St. Paul's Church Trinity at gmail.com, or we will have tickets at the door. The church can sit 500 people, so that shouldn't be any issue getting in. And if I can also, anybody wants to help out, you can also donate if you want to donate to the church at Canada Helps. And also we have you could donate a bundle of singles for $50. We're doing a bingo at Rocky's Club on Wednesday nights right now. And also in the church we have a tap machine for anybody going in. We really need some help to get this historic church back in shape.
I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your efforts out in Trinity. Thanks, Wayne.
Okay, then. Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 6. Trent, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty, how you doing, buddy?
Excellent today. How about you?
Good. I'm on Bluetooth here, so hopefully the connection doesn't drop. Patty, I want to talk to you about the holes and gaps that are in the healthcare system when a doctor or a physician of any type retires from the field. At a young age of probably 39, 38 years old, I was diagnosed with severe arthritis in both my knees. So I've been getting cortisone injections because they won't do replacement because I'm way too young. The injections were working really well up until COVID, and when COVID struck, I was getting injections every 3 to 4 months. When COVID happened, I went a year without injections, and that really set me back big time. But after COVID and everything got cleared up and we got back on track, me and my doctor got on a strict injection regime where, we would not go any more than 3 months, 2.5 to 3 months, and we got back on track, and my knees were feeling fabulous. On my last appointment with my doctor back in, this is June, so my last appointment back in March with my doctor, he dropped a bombshell on me, and he told me that he was retiring. And I was sad to hear that because, we had as a doctor and a patient, we had like a little bit of a joking relationship, and stuff like that. So I was a little bit saddened to hear that. But he told me not to worry. He said, you won't fall through no gaps. He said you're going to be referred to another physician like myself. So I waited, and I never got no phone call about another follow-up appointment. So I called this number, and when I called, the lady said that my referral has been sent to a cortisone injection site. I think that's going to be at the site of the new the old Costco building up on Stavanger Drive. And I asked her, I said, do you have any idea when that is going to be? And she said, we have no idea. She said, right now, we're getting referrals. She said, you're looking at probably a year and a half or two before you even get an appointment. And I mean, that is ridiculous.
Yeah, my doctor just came back from a 6-month sabbatical or academic leave or whatever the case may be. So your doctor is now retired?
My doctor is officially retired, and I had a GP that was doing my injections. I guess, like if something, because every now and then, like the doctor that was doing the injections, like every now and then, like he would get called out of the city and had to go to elsewhere across the province for clinics, and so my old GP would fill in the gaps, which was best kind, and he was okay, and the injection doctor was okay with that. But unfortunately, for circumstances that I'm not going to get into, I had to leave my old GP and go and find a new one. And I've been told that my new GP doesn't do. Not every doctor does injections, and my new one, unfortunately, doesn't do the injection. So the gap is not being filled. And like I said, the problem I got is like they knew damn well that this clinic wasn't going to be operational up on Stavanger Drive. So why did my referral get sent to a injection clinic instead of another doctor? Because I know there's other doctors in the clinic in the field that do injections, like for knees and stuff. So like I want to know like why my referral wasn't sent off to another doctor to fill in the gap until the injection clinic. Like I don't understand why.
I don't know either. I mean, people need to be matched with doctors that can satisfy their potentially unique needs. Like if you get an injection that is not being done by everybody, it just stands to reason that you need to be matched up with the doctor who does.
That's right, and like I understand that the healthcare system is bombarded with shortages and stuff like that, but I mean there has to be more than one doctor. There has to be more than one doctor in the healthcare field that does injections. So like I said, and I can't get no answers, and like I tried, and I don't even have a contact number for my MHA to call because my MHA is Premier Hogan out of Windsor Lake, and I don't even have a number for his constituent assistant to call. So like I can't even call to get any assistance on that. So like I don't know what to do.
Yeah, well, I don't know if there's a formal list to be on for going to the injection clinic. I really don't even know how that works, but I can try to figure it out. For everyone else out there who's looking for a doctor, there's only one way to do it. It's not about calling clinic to clinic. It's about getting on the Patient Connect list. And I know that's not ideal. And when I was on it, I waited just about a year before I got assigned to a doctor or attached to a doctor. But specifically for that injection clinic, I really don't know, Trent, but I'll see what I can find out for you.
Because that's where all the, I was told that's where all the injections, like, regardless of cortisone or whatever other kind of injections is there, that's what that new place on Stavanger Drive is going to be. It's going to be an injection site to take the congestion away from the hospitals, which I think is a great idea. But to get from the hospitals to this clinic, they need to have a stopgap in place where people don't fall through the gaps. Because like I said, I'm looking at well over a year now before that clinic is even going to be not even ready. But the clinic's probably going to be ready before that. But there's going to be that big of a backlog. I'm going to be right on bottom of the pile. So I'm up Shit's Creek without a paddle, as the saying goes.
Yeah, I understand your concerns here. I will send off a note to someone I know who works in the system specifically about people getting assigned to doctors, just to see if there's something specific about the injection clinic. I don't know if there is, but I'll try to find out for you.
All right, well, buddy, I appreciate your time and all your help. Thank you.
No problem at all. Thanks, Trent.
All right, bye.
And you're welcome and goodbye. So if anybody actually knows those details before I get on my email keyboard to try to figure it out, you let me know. Dave, you want me to take another one here, or are we going to take a break? Let's take a break. Tommy, you stay right there, and George is also in the queue. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Tommy. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you doing today?
Doing well today. Thank you. How about you?
Oh, not too bad, boy. I was calling in about the fire ban. Like, it's getting a bit ridiculous, right? Like, it's been raining for the last week, a little bit more than a week. Now it's got rain today and probably rain for the next few more days. Everything is green. Nothing's going to catch on fire. And I can't understand what is fire ban.
Where do you live? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling you from St. John's.
Okay, because in and around our house and in and around the golf course, it's rock hard and dry. I mean, a little bit of rain with these dry conditions, it's going to take a lot of rain to really, get into the ground. Like just outside my back gate, it rained the other day and I went out there and just out of curiosity, because I was going to hit a few wedges back there, just tried to stick a tee in the ground, still rock hard. So
What do y'all don't play golf?
Well, I'll just talk about how dry the conditions are.
I'm a retired firefighter, Daddy.
Fair enough.
I just don't understand this. It don't make any sense. I got grandchildren want to have a wiener roast out in the backyard. Not allowed to do it.
Let me bounce this rationale off you, Tommy, as a former firefighter. So I guess it's not even necessarily 100% about the conditions where we live or where anybody who's listening to the program lives. It's about the amount of resources already being
how
occupied.
About lift the fire ban on the Avalon? Because it makes no sense. I was out fishing the other day. You can't even light a fire. Sure, everything is wet. Everything is green. I don't understand it. Like, why is everybody fear-mongering because there's a fire rolling badger started by lightning? I don't get it.
Well, who's fear-mongering over a fire? What does that mean?
Geez, you turn on NTV News, talks about fires. You listen to VOCM, talks about fires. And here, a fella can't even have a weenie roast out in the backyard with the grandchildren. Like, it don't make any sense.
So the point I was making, that, and this is the point that people will make, and I'll get your reaction, is with the amount of resources already consumed with fighting fires wherever, around Badger or in Labrador or wherever there's a fire, when they are stretched as thin as they seem to be, then I guess the rationale is let's try to avoid at all possible another fire elsewhere while we try to fight those fires. What do you think about that?
Makes no sense, Paddy. Makes no sense. Years ago, we never had these problems.
Years ago, we
never had these problems, Paddy. Oh, yeah, I'm still here, boy. It just makes no sense. I says, our summers are being ruined because we can't even have a fire out in the backyard, or we goes upside the pond, can't even have a fire. It makes no sense.
All right.
Fire ban? Yes, I understand if it was dry, but it's been raining for the last week, and I just checked the weather forecast. We got another few days worth of rain and cold weather coming. I don't get it. Like, who's deciding these things?
The fire hall.
The fire hall, right?
That's who makes the announcement.
I've been a firefighter for 25 years, and I've never seen this before.
In this neck of the woods, the announcement was made by the St. John's Regional Fire Department.
Right. But why? It doesn't make any sense, Paddy.
So you've said.
I can understand if it was really dry weather, the grass has gone yellow, but it is not. Everything is green, and people can't even have a fire in the backyard or a mug up or
right.
have a weenie roast with their grandchildren or nothing. It just makes no sense.
Have you tried calling the brass at the fire hall? See what they have to say?
And you know what they say?
Nope.
It's up to the Premier. It's up to the government. That's where they get the orders from. The government. So, what are we supposed to do? Like, the fire ban is on, then it's off. As soon as the fire starts somewhere else in Newfoundland, then there's a fire ban. And now, there's rain for the last week. Everything is green. You couldn't even have a barbecue out in your backyard if it was cold. Like charcoal barbecue. You're not even allowed to have that. It don't make any sense to me.
Got it.
So you tell me, Paddy.
Why are you asking me to tell you? I don't make these decisions.
Well, you can't go golfing. You can't start a fire on the golf course.
Absolutely you could. Tons of brown out there.
No, Paddy, makes no sense to me.
Understood. Point taken.
We're trying to have a good summer in Newfoundland. We only got 6 months of half decent weather.
Okay.
And we can't even have a fire.
Yes, I know.
Right?
Right.
It makes no sense. And there's a lot of my friends, a lot of Newfoundlanders who agree with me why there's a fire ban. I understand if it was dry and the grass is yellow, but Paddy, it's raining. It's going to be raining tomorrow. It's probably been
Tommy,
raining.
I heard you. I've heard your point. I get it.
Right?
It makes no sense.
So, like,
to you.
It don't make any sense.
Okay.
Like, all right. Well, I'm going to leave it at that, Paddy.
I appreciate it, Tommy.
Thank you, buddy.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 1. And you're on the air.
Hello, Paddy. This is I'm calling about that last caller, he should be ashamed to say that he's a retired fireman.
Why?
With the attitude he has. He should know more than what he's just saying online. We can always do the wieners in a pot of water, like we always did, and give them to his grandchildren. He should be ashamed to say that. Put the fire ban on and keep it on until the end of the summer.
I think the only reason why, areas that might not feel or look like they're susceptible to any fire is because the rationale offered is when the resources are tied up the way they are fighting fires, they try to avoid any additional fires if at all possible. I mean, that's what they tell us. Whether or not the ban is required at this specific moment in time in the city of St. John's, I'll leave that up to whoever's listening and people to make the decision. Like, I can get by without a fire. If it becomes an extended ban when we have, limited amount of heat and the rain continues to come down, then I think we need to revisit things. But I hadn't really considered any problems for me. But now Tommy can speak for himself. If he wishes it was gone, so be it. But for me, I haven't given it much thought.
I'm just speaking for myself, and I've heard other people say the same. They're scared because how do we know where the fire is going to start?
That's the thing, right?
In any part of the province. Better to be sure than sorry.
Yeah, I would. Look, if the fire, there's some personal responsibility required here for all of us, and not just in the city of St. John's, but everywhere. We talk about how many fires have maybe been inadvertently set by someone who was just careless, with a cigarette butt, or the exhaust on their ATV might have been responsible. And some of these things really do happen. So I just hope that we get through without much more in the way of evacuating towns like Badger, much more in the way of evacuating Churchill Falls and Lab City like we did last summer. So that's where I kind of come down on it. I can do without, but if Tommy wants to have a fire, that's up to Tommy. Me, I'm pretty content to just hope for the best. Hopefully my place doesn't catch on fire.
And be safe.
Yeah,
I experienced it some years ago. I live in Torbay, and I experienced it in my backfield where two kids, 6 years old, had a lighter, and it ended up with the fire department out here.
It doesn't take much.
It does not. So let's hope Tommy comes to his senses. Thank you so much, Paddy, for your time.
My pleasure, Anne. Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
You're
Bye-bye.
Welcome. Bye-bye. All right, how are we doing out there, Dave? Doing all right? Let's get another one here. Let's go to line number 3. George, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Thank you for having me on.
No problem.
You and I spoke about 3 years ago with regards to Prince of Wales Collegiate reunion. It was the 50th reunion, but we had to have it 2 years after COVID. So we decided after that we'd do a 55th rather than wait to the 60th. So I think you need a break and have a good time announcement here with regards to some old fogies looking to have a great reunion for Prince of Wales Collegiate, and that's taking place on July 25th, 26th, and 27th. And we're optimistic we can do 3 days. We still got the energy to do it at the septuagenarian.
What's on tap for 3 days?
Yeah, we're going 3 days, which is going to have a lot of vitamins. And Friday, July 25th at O'Reilly's on George Street, meet and greet happy hour. And we're going from 6 p.m. to 10 or beyond. And that's on the Friday evening. The Saturday evening, Saturday, July 26th, is at the Mazzole Shriners at 530 Topsail Road. It's a sock hop dance, and we're going to dance till we drop. And both DJ and live music. And then the Sunday, July 27th, is a Topsail Beach party where we all used to haunt way back in the day. And that's from 1 to 4 or until we wake up to go home. And that's essentially the 55th reunion for this year. So I'm just reaching out through yourself and the OCM to try and get some additional information out for that. We've got a great response already. The last one we had about 140 students come to the reunion from all over the place, and this year we're getting a great response, and we're hoping we can duplicate that number. I wanted to point out as well, if I may, jump in at any point, but a big part of the reunion is that we've raised funds for current PwC graduates. 3 years ago, we raised 3 $1,000 scholarships that we presented to students at PwC upon their graduation. That would be 2022. And this year we've managed to raise funds for 5 $1,000 scholarships to students, and they're going to be presented with that tomorrow at their graduating ceremonies at PwC. So that was a big part of our incentive to have the reunions and to try and give back to the school and to students. And these aren't scholarships that are going necessarily to academic students, but they're going for different reasons, different needs that we kind of stipulated that would be taken into consideration when kids were awarded those scholarships. So that's what we're doing, and looking forward to a great turnout there. And PwC have a saying now, it's go P-Dub. But back in the day when we fought against Brother Rice and all of those and sports and everything else, it would just go PwC go. So we're looking forward to having a good turnout for that. And anybody who's listening who knows someone who was a graduate from 1970, the PwC tickets are on sale. They're going strong, and if anybody wanted to purchase tickets, try and get in touch with someone they know, or they can go to ticketspwc1970@gmail.com, and we'll fix them up, or they can purchase at the door. So that's any students from the 69-70 who went to Prince of Wales Collegiate.
Sounds like a grand old time. And that particular chant that you mentioned, that's not the one that the Brother Rice supporters would chant about PwC.
I'd say that. Sorry, what was that again?
The Go PwC rally cry that you mentioned is certainly a lot different than what the Brother Rice supporters would chant about Prince of Wales Collegiate.
Know all about that, having played back in the day, and a lot of my friends. I grew up a Protestant in a predominantly Roman Catholic area down in Casey Street, so all my buddies were Holy Cross and PwC folks. And we honed our skills playing street hockey and basketball down there and everything else, and soccer. So it was only when we got older that we played against each other, and that was a lot of fun. So great camaraderie, but yeah, great competition back in the day. So, but yeah, we're really looking forward to this, and we've the same group on the committee for the past. A shout out to the committee as well for the past 7 or 8 years prior to the 1970 reunion in 2020, and we've stuck together, and a lot of efforts put into it, and we're really looking forward to having a good time for those 3 days. Hopefully, we all last.
I was going to say, you talk about dance till you drop. Might have to put a timer on that one.
Yeah, no way, Patty. We're going for it.
Attaboy. That's what I like to hear, George. Listen, I appreciate your time and the good news, and hopefully all hands have a great time.
All right, I appreciate the time, Patty, and enjoy the rest of your day.
The same to you. Take care.
Bye now.
All right, bye-bye. Let's take a break. When we come back, Art's there to talk about the MOU. Which one, we'll find out. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 4. Good morning, Art. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Patty. Thank you for taking my call.
No problem.
I want to talk about the MOU regarding Churchill Falls. It's basically up for discussion.
Sure.
I got a number of points to make. First of all, Patty, I want to say that I'm somewhat disappointed. I'm not saying it's a good deal or a bad deal. I'm basically saying that it needs to be improved. Basically, what we need is some type of a sign bonus. And I would suggest that this signing recognition of the past, basically for 50 years at $20 million a year, about $1 billion a year. So I'm suggesting a type of signing bonus, anywhere in the range of $2 billion to $5 billion. This would represent roughly 12 months profit for Hydro over 1 year, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't in the room, so I have no earthly idea what was part of the negotiations from either side. I'm going to guess, because we long have heard, you know, the thought or the concept of redress from between now back to 1969, and that to me felt a lot like that was something where that was a starting point, is looking for redress. I guess if you ask Hydro-Quebec, they'll say, well, that's exactly what you got, but we're looking down the road as opposed to looking back. I don't know what was involved in the negotiation, but I've heard that point made several times. And why? Because they kept saying redress.
Well, I did some research at Google. Hydro-Quebec make about a $5 billion profit a year, which, by the way, is not included in the equalization Quebec, they get $13 billion a year from the federal government, and it's not included. So sometimes the government of Quebec is saying to Hydro-Quebec, build a school in Gaspé or build a bridge in Rugby. So on their asset base, they have a lot of services provided for the people of Quebec. The second point I want to make is that some Hydro-Quebec say they're getting a 50-year contract at roughly half the cost for replacing their power. So they have to build new hydro dams and facilities at double the cost. So I believe we need to get more on this MOU. It appears that the MOU is pretty well is what it is. I think the government are going to just move it across the line without any changes. I think there needs to be more negotiations. The replacement costs, I think they did the Romaine River at 13 cents a kilowatt hour, and I think the negotiation figure, and I could be wrong, right now is about 5.9 cents a kilowatt hour, so I think there's more room for negotiations to move this forward.
And it's a pathway towards 5.9 cents per kilowatt hour. It doesn't start at that. That's when they were saying things like $17 billion over 17 years. That's an average, annualized average, because it's not $1 billion in year one. So we're moving from 0.2% or cents per kilowatt hour to eventually, by the end of 17 years, 5.9 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's not automatic, which I do think changes some of the thoughts people take. In addition to what you said about it looks like the government's just going to push it over the finish line, it feels like it. I mean, the mandate for the 3-person oversight committee is simply nowhere outside of what's currently written in a 30-odd page MOU, when we know things are changing, even as recently as, or since the announcement was made. Like, what happens and how do we consider whether or not there will be, for once and for all, a national energy corridor? I mean, I know that conversation is as old as 1961 and Diefenbaker, but there might be the possibility for that. So what does that mean for this particular deal? Things like that, which are not even part of the consideration, I don't know why not. And then you add to it what federal assistance looks like. Because if we're talking about how much either side contributes and how much either side gleans from this, doesn't that change if the feds hop in here? So I think at least those two things have to be part of the consideration. They would be if it was my deal.
Well, the other point I want to make, too, I think we need a completely independent review of this MOU. I understand we have one from the PUB, but their background is legal. And what I'm suggesting is that a group of university students from the School of Business and the Department of Economics should get together, graduate students and even undergraduate students, and have them look at this. I mean, this would cost very, very little for the government of Newfoundland Hydro to go to the university and say, look, have another look at this. And the more eyes that look at this, the better. I think one of the last points I want to make is that I believe that this should be a referendum in the next election. It wouldn't cost anything. Just put the question on, are you in support of the MOU? I mean, I have a copy of the MOU. I read it and tried to read it. It's a pretty complicated document, to say the least. And so that's the reason I'm suggesting that we have a group of university students to look at that, So, but I mean, I guess that, one of the things for me is that we didn't renew this contract in 2041. Hydro-Quebec to build a lot of hydro plants at double the cost of what it would cost, what they're getting to Churchill Falls. Paddy, about 5 weeks ago, spoke to St. John's East, and I attended as a visiting Rotarian, and she defended the MOU. And at the end of it, she took a question and answer period, and I asked a simple question that, are all the profits of Churchill River split 50-50 based on a go-forward basis? And she said, after a 2-minute response about CFL, those percentages of 66% for hydro, 34% for hydro. Yes, here's the issue for me, and I'm not going to call it the smoking gun, but the people of Quebec have the lowest electricity bills in North America. And they're going to have increased demand for aluminum smelters and artificial intelligence. And right now they use their own. They're selling their own power at below market cost, okay? But they also sell power to New York and Ontario at fair market value. So, what I'm saying is that if we didn't do this deal in 2041, all the water went to the ocean. Well, basically, they got to come from 5,000 megs from Churchill and 1,000 megs from Gull to sell domestically. So right now, what they're using domestically at below market rates, and then they sell their power to New York and Ontario at fair market value, and that's where they're making the profit, you know?
Yeah, and now a couple of things on that front. The average cost across the board in Quebec is around 8 cents, vastly different than what we pay here. And the ability to get into the northeastern United States is 100% simply no more than it's transmission. They have it, we don't. So unless, and that's where the energy corridor comes into this. If there was indeed the opportunity to be part of the national grid with access to the northeastern United States directly on already built lines, you'd have to expand power transmission to, accommodate, even if we're just talking Gull. But that's where, that was the backbone for Muskrat Falls, is to get around Quebec. So, I don't know. I think there's a bit more to this, but anyway.
People are talking about this energy corridor. I'm not overly excited. I'm old enough to remember when Joey Small went to Lester Pearson to try to get power shipped to Quebec, and Pearson said, "Joe, we know why you're here. Don't ask. Don't deal with Quebec," and that's what he did. In 1980, Pepper went head-to-head with Pierre Trudeau and said, "Look, we want to push the hydrolines through," and he had no choice but to say yes. And then René Lévesque came out and said, "Yes, okay, go ahead, but how do you protect them, the power lines? What's your security? What's your plan for security?" So, we always had the right on paper, but from a practical perspective, we have to do a deal with Quebec. They have to be involved, and they have to, say no. To me, that's the problem. We always have to involve. Now, this deal we're having, 17 billion over 17 years is certainly a plus. But we have the smaller river, which, my understanding, is the second largest. The largest is over in China someplace. So, and that is the crown jewel. And right now, Hydro-Quebec getting access to it for the next 50 years. Why don't we cut that in half to 25 years?
I don't know. A quick comment, because I do have to get to the news, Eric. You say that, you've read through it, as have I, and there's a lot of technically heavy stuff in there, and there's lots of big numbers in there. And then you talk about putting it to the voters, putting it as part of a referendum. My thought on that is, I don't think enough people will be able to firmly understand all of the moving parts of it to have a definitive yes or no that carries a whole lot of weight. And I'll put myself in that category, because there is a lot to it. And, you talk about cash on the barrel head and whether that was part of the negotiation. One thing where I think the government could have done a better job here is, so many people out there are confused what 2041 actually means. But we struck a committee to look at exactly the implications of 2041, and they didn't tell the general public what the results were. So some people think 2041 is the panacea. 2041, we get complete ownership of the Upper Churchill, none of which is true. So if we knew what 2041 meant, we'd probably be better well served to understand exactly what this MO looks like, and whether or not it's rectified any of the sins of the past, or however people want to put it. Art, I'll give you the final 30 seconds because I'm late for the news.
Yeah, that's the reason I'm suggesting, Paddy, that we get a bunch of university students, graduate students from the Department of Economics and the School of Business, because this is a number, this is not a legal game. And I'm sure some of those students probably even went through the French program. So we could, certainly send them up to Quebec and talk to Hydro-Quebec. To me, this needs far more research by an independent group, such as a group from the university. And I went to the university in the 70s. Part of my graduate program was to do a study. We 5 of us did a report about the Department of Agriculture, and one of our groups actually did a report on bow waters, and help them move forward. So I think it needs more study. It needs an independent review.
All right, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break for the news.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Michael, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you?
Couldn't be better. How about you?
Not bad. Paddy, I want to talk just a quick preamble. The word transparency, and when you hear a lot of organizations use that word, it's a buzzword and it really means nothing. Transparent is kind of a cloak over what's happening. I think governments use it, organizations use it all the time when you use the word transparency. And to get information, you have a lot of hoops, type of thing, freedom of information and so forth. And what I'm leading up to, Paddy, is the fallout of the church scandals. You know what I mean? The sale of the churches, the basilica, I mean, how that was sort of negotiated, and use the word negotiated in inverted commas. All of that information, you know, there seems a lack of information there. But that's not what I want to go to today. My area, I want to focus on the paintings belong to Jerry Squires. And I might sound like a broken record or a one-man committee, but, you know, what happened, Paddy? I asked a number of basic questions. What happened to the paintings belonging to that George Squires had at Mary Queen's Word Church? What happened to them?
They got auctioned off. So there was the Last Supper was in there, and of course all the Stations of the Cross were Jerry Squires' pieces of work. They were auctioned at Bartlett's.
Where did it go, and how much did it fetch? Is that information public?
I'm really not sure. I'd have to take a look, Michael, but I do know that they were put up for auction.
Yeah, but I mean, if you imagine the Stations of the Cross in somebody's basement, they weren't meant for a church, not church. They weren't meant for somebody's house. The Stations of the Cross. Can you imagine somebody having 14 Stations of the Cross in their house, type of thing like that? It seems incongruous, absolutely incongruous. So, you know, I'm hearing rumors from visitors when I do my walking tours. I'm hearing rumors from visitors. Are they in the rooms, in the basement, in the rooms?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I suppose I can I can certainly find out. I can just contact the auction house directly to see if there was public disclosure of end bids. Now, if I'm a private citizen, I don't owe anybody an answer as to what I'm doing with the painting. So it's probably going to be difficult to get that information. There's got to be a running tally because, if I'm not mistaken, it was all part of the compensation package as well, wasn't it? Because the paintings were in the church.
Yeah, I know we're not going to hear the money going to the victims, but what about the lawyers? You know, would that be public money, you know, public money spent there, you know, on the lawyers and on the paintings? I think there's accountability. There's something missing. You know, with Jerry Squires, and you would agree, his paintings were magical, mysterious, the haunting quality. They're so much part of us, and they're gone.
Oh, I know where you're coming from. I know a couple of people that have Jerry Squires paintings, and they're remarkable. I mean, I'll never own one, obviously, but he's a real key part of the art world in this country, not just in this province. So I can get an answer to what became of that particular auction, because I do know that did happen. And who bought them, we'll never find out. If people don't want to be publicly disclosed, they don't owe us any answers. But I can see if I can come up with a sum.
Yeah, it reminds me of the kind of how the British government stole the marble statues from Greece. Never, you know, so it's, you know, the Father Adrian had an agreement, you know, with Jerry, you know, and you know, where's that? You know, is that public knowledge? You know, I really feel that there's a lot of questions about Jerry Squires' paintings and where they've gone to, and it's part of our history. And I seem like a one-man committee. I wonder, do other people care? You know, I think they do. I think all of Newfoundland is really, really. I think you would agree with that, Paddy. That it's part of so much part of us.
I would agree. Many of the most notable artists are certainly part of what this province is. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. And I don't have an answer to how much they raised, where the money went, but those are answers I can get. That shouldn't be that big a deal.
Okay, appreciate that, Paddy. Appreciate that very much. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Michael. Stay in touch.
Thank you.
Right,
Thank
bye-bye.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been Mary Queen of the World, but the Stations of the Cross are all individual pieces of art produced by Jerry Squires. It's really quite something. And his thought of the Last Supper, I mean, that was a remarkable piece of art. I don't know where it is, but we should be able to find out just how much money was raised through that auction, because if you go to buy a Jerry Squires original, it ain't cheap. And justifiably so. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, John. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Hi, John.
On your last program there, Friday, you were going to give out a number for seniors to call someone and catch their fish for them.
Okay, so the application for recreational food fishery disability application.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. I think I did give it out, didn't I? I'll see if I can find it here for you quick. Is that something that you're going to need to do yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's see if there's... Well, of course, nothing's going to be easy here. Let's see. All right, here we go. I think I got the form right in front of me. Get the form. And let's see if it has an actual telephone number. While I look for that, John, can I put you on hold? I'll bring you back on, so when I give it to you, I'll be able to give it to everyone else as well. How's that?
I got another question to ask you now.
Okay, far away.
Former premier, he said he'd give up politics to spend time with his kids. Are they in college?
No, they're young.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if he's in college, he's going to be taking a French course sooner.
Why, you think there's a federal politics run coming?
Oh, I think he wants to be the Prime Minister of Canada, to tell you the truth.
Maybe. I'm not sure what the future holds for him. But, yeah, no, his children are small. His oldest is probably in mid-teens somewhere, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then. Thanks.
No problem. I'm going to put you on hold so I can find that number for you.
All right.
Okay, there you go. Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 3. Ruby, you're on the air.
Oh, good morning, Patty. How are you this morning?
Doing okay, thanks. How about you?
Oh, I'm not too bad, but I can't talk to. I mean, I got to get to my subject right away, because if I don't, I could be cut off the phone, because I live in Masonic Park here, and I know for a fact I'm having trouble at least 2 or 3 weeks with Rogers, and I'm with Rogers for years and years and years, with the TV, internet, and my home phone. And I'm after calling, and it seems like we're getting the runaround here. And even my son got on his computer yesterday and called, and we cannot get any satisfaction why this is going on every day. I haven't got no TV or anything again today, and this has been 2 weeks or more. And I'm just going to the airways with it to see if there's anyone else in Mount Pearl or Masonic Park with this problem. Because I'm calling and I can't get no satisfaction. And I'm wondering, Patty, if they're having construction here, can they let the people know? I mean, we're paying this every day and we're not getting any satisfaction. And Patty, I came to your airwaves to see if there's someone can come on and see if they're having the same kind of problems here. So I don't know if have you heard of this? Because this is every week, and you call Rogers, and you probably get someone in Vancouver or somewhere else with your problem with your TV. We can't get an electrician or anyone to come in like they did years ago with a truck and check the poles and see if there's wires or something off the pole here and try to get something fixed up.
Fair enough. Just so I know exactly what we're talking about, Ruby, what happens every week?
No. This has been this couple of weeks where I'm not having any satisfaction to sit down and watch a program here on my TV. And I'm after calling, and I said, is any trouble in the area? And they said no, and I can't seem. We may have to get someone in to check this and that. But there's no one coming in to do anything with it.
Okay,
I'm thinking if it's outside work or something, Patty, think there'd be a truck coming in the area and check this.
Yeah. So you have no service whatsoever?
Well, you sit down, you watch your TV, you put on your remote, you could sit down even to watch the news. You're not even looking at it 5 minutes when your TV go black again. Now I have everything checked out the TV. My TV's okay, and it's the same problem. It's coming and going like that every day. And that's going on 2 weeks now or more. But it's off and on for a while, but steady now, there's 2 weeks.
Is it just you, or is it the entire complex?
Well, now there's a couple of ladies. There was another couple of ladies down here in one of the cottages here, and they do have problems the same as I am.
Okay, I wonder, is it your receiver? Because when I went through that exact thing, like for me, is when I changed channels. I had watched for 30 seconds, gone. And when I called...
Now, that's just like... You're describing what I'm going through this 2 weeks or more.
Yeah, that might be your receiver. So when you call, who are you trying to speak with? Someone in technical support?
Yes, definitely. Oh, yes, I'm going through all that things that you're talking about now. I'm after being through that.
And so I think if you call the next time, just say that you have a problem with your receiver, because then they'll do a check. Like, they can actually check your receiver where they are, because that's what they did with me. They said,
"Oh no, they yesterday afternoon, my son went on the computer. Oh, he was on the computer every bit of an hour because there's so many people in line waiting. There was 19 people in line waiting to get through to Rogers, and they did check everything on my TV and everything, and but everything that they checked was okay."
Yeah, because when I went through it, it was exactly that. It was my receiver was the problem. It wasn't the service. It wasn't the lines coming into the house. It wasn't none of that stuff. It was the physical receiver itself.
So, what are you... Now, listen, you're getting technical now. The receiver. What do you mean by the receiver?
People just call it the box. So the box...
We're after being that route.
Okay.
Checked that box yesterday and everything like that. In fact, that box is a new one too, that I have, right? So I'm after being through that. So I'm just wondering if now if there's something, a wire where it could be the wind and everything, and it could be a wire that's blown or something in this area.
It could very well be.
I'm just wondering now, probably after I get off the phone, we could probably have more calls come in, and we could check it, get someone to check this area anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, I have no authority over the big telecom companies.
No, I know, but that's why I'm calling you, because I'm after calling Roger so often that I can't seem to get satisfaction there anymore, right?
Yeah, let me...
Usually when you call and they got trouble in your area, they'll say, "Oh no, it's trouble there in the area." But I haven't got that this a week or more, saying it's trouble in the area.
All right, so someone who is belonged to some decision-making authority at Rogers, around, you said Masonic Park, right, Ruby?
That's correct.
Yeah, so if someone can try to assess whether or not there's an issue that they're aware of that can be rectified, or at least let the customers know what's going on.
Or even if there's trouble, say if there's trouble down around my area here, where it could be trouble there on the pole or something, but do we have to be waiting and waiting and waiting? We're paying our money for everything every month. Everything is brought up to date, and every single day. Is there any... the question I would like to ask, is there anyone working with Rogers that do these situations and go around check your poles and so on? Because I don't see anyone in this area very often.
I don't know, but hopefully someone who can make that decision is listening. Just let the folks in the area know. If it's a receiver, send them a new one. If it's something that you control, then fix it. Ruby, fingers crossed. Let me know how you make out.
Oh, I certainly will. And Patty, thanks a lot for listening.
My pleasure. Take care.
Take care.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye. Yeah, I mean, just like getting on the phone with any of these big corporations. Oh, man. We spoke with someone last week about the inability to even speak with anyone, whether or not you were calling the bank or you were calling the telco or whatever the case may be. I get it. I went through hoops for hours before someone simply said, "Oh, it's your receiver." "Oh, very good. How about sending me a new one?" Let's take a break. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Sandra, you're on the air.
Hi. I'd like to speak a little bit about our school system.
Okay.
It's a disgrace, Patty. And the sad thing is, you take those memories with you, and the bullies take it with them too. They go to work and they become bullies at work. I'll tell you a bit about myself. When I was 5 years old, I had a stroke due to meningitis. I lost the use of my right side. I had to learn everything again, how to walk, how to use utensils. And because it was on my right side, which I was right-handed, I had to become left-handed. The teachers wrote my mother and told her all I would do is daydream. But I was blacking out. The kids were merciless at me. They even stooped as low as trying to beat some sense into me. And I was called brain damage kid all through school. And my mom and dad got really frustrated. So my home life wasn't much better. The teachers knew about me being bullied, but did nothing. And I wasn't the only one. But you'd think after 55 years that someone would notice that there's a problem with the system. At the time, their solution was, the teachers, to do a single year of school in 2 years. I quit school. I was in grade 8. And I just had it. But the doctors had me on this drug called phenobarb, okay? And they put me on too high of a dosage. So that's why I couldn't learn anything. I was taking it in, but I couldn't get it out. And it seems like it's the same thing today after 55 years. I mean, come on.
Well, what's happening today? That's your experience in school. I'm sorry to hear it, but what are we talking about insofar as today goes?
Well, there's still a lot of bullying going on.
Oh, yeah.
For one thing. Their solution with me after a while was to put me in a special class, which helped me, believe it or not, because they put me in a special class with special students with needs. So I wasn't being bullied there. And we had a great teacher, and she had enough patience to go to each student, and we learned, and we could relax a bit, because the main thing was with us, we were all getting bullied, you know? And it's still the same today. And this, you know, the school system, it stinks, you know? Like, I don't know.
Some of the bullying stuff, look, it happens, and it happens a lot, and some kids are tormented to the point where they cry themselves asleep and they don't want to go to school, and that's just dreadful. Some of that is, of course, what happens in the school, but some of it is what happens at home. So, you know, there's something to be said for that as well.
Yeah, there is, because, you know, bullies, if your parents are bullies, you're going to be a bully, you know? If it's not caught in school, what happens to these kids when they grow up? You know, there's a problem with suicides. You know, the kids don't know how to act. Neither the bullies or the ones being bullied. I didn't know. I was scared to have friends because they were friends with the bullies. You know, like, it was awful.
Yeah, it could be a nasty circle, that's for sure, Sandra. Anything else you want to say this morning?
I was different, okay? I had a stroke, and that was held against me. You know, I had to learn all over again, and I had to go to school, you know? I don't know, that was 55 years ago. Like, something should have changed by now.
Hard to argue. You know, I don't know how much the schools do or can do when we talk about bullying? Because, I mean, now we've got all of these incidents of violence and the number of times the police are called. So, number one, we have to separate what is someone making fun of someone's freckles versus someone getting the punch in the mouth. So they're not the same thing. We shouldn't call them the same thing. And, you know, it really does feel like that whole pendulum swing. If the vice principal called home when I was in school because I did something bad, I was in trouble. And now it's gone the other way around. The vice principal calls home to make the parent aware of what their child is up to, just to be told, how dare you? I mean, it's some people are oblivious to what their kids are at.
I think the bullies should have, if they're caught, they should have to wear a leg bracelet, say, and they
Scarlet
could only
letter.
go from home to school.
Yeah, I don't know if we can actually impose that on a kid, and that's something else we have to remember is for a lot of these children, they're children, and some kids just get away with so much that of course they're going to push the boundaries, and the next thing you know, what was once a taunt now becomes an act of violence, and that is probably part of it. It'd be nice to hear from folks who will admit to themselves that they were that bad kid, they were that bully in school, and what kind of became of them when they saw the light, or whether or not, some of the kids that they bullied in school, if they're able to, have some sort of relationship or friendship with people who they were their tormentor. Sandra, I have to get going, but I appreciate your time. Thanks for calling.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's go to line number 1. Eliza, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning.
I think that everything that I was about to say, I kind of got my mind changed, and I'll tell you why. When I listened to that lady on there then saying she was bullied and talking about, we get into talking about troubled children and family life and different things like that. I guess what I'm about to say it has to do with the train, but right now I think that the children, the teenagers who vandalize the train are far more important than the train itself. And I just want to speak about there last week. I went out for a walk, and I decided, we'll just go walk around towards the train. There were 2 people in the train and 3 outside. So I started to talk to them, and 3 seemed to be just there. The other 2 that I spoke to was very... I don't know what to say. They were not only rude and saucy, but I found very deeply troubled. They swore on me and laughed at me and all of those things, and that's fine, because I had to look deeper, and I did look deeper. Last night, the same thing happened, and I walked along by the train, and I heard noises, and I said, somebody is beating up something in there. So I walked around the train, and I called out, and they answered me, the same 2 that I was talking to before. Now, when I was talking to them before, I asked their names, and they lied, and because I knew they thought, if I tell you my real name, you're going to do something about it. And I said, you know what? You can tell me who you are, and I won't tell who you are. That's they didn't kind of believe that. So last night when I ran into them again, I said, please come out of the train. You're not allowed in there. Please come out. And they did. And I couldn't see them first, but in my heart, I knew it was the same 2. And I said, are you? And I called her by name, and she said, yes. And I said, are you beating up something in there? She said, no. But she said, I'm not, but he is. And I said, please come out. I said, are you drinking in there? because they were drinking something in a can. But anyway, they showed me, and it wasn't beer or anything. So they came out, and I started talking to them. They were 100% different than what they were the first night. So anyway, one of them, the young guy, and I will not say his name, and I wouldn't tell anybody else on air or off air. He had, I don't really know what it's called, but it's like a ratchet where you can hook off the clapboard or whatever. And he had that in his hand, and I said, my gosh. I said, what are you doing with that? I said, give it to me. No, he said. And I said, he said, I got to beat things up. And I said, why? Because he said, I'm angry. And I asked him if he went to maybe saw any social workers or counselors.
Okay.
He said yes, but it didn't help him or whatever. And he told me other things about his family life, which honestly, it's heart-wrenching. Then when I spoke to the other one, she showed me her cuts. She said, I cut myself. And I said, could you explain that to me, because I don't understand that. She said, I would rather cut myself and feel the physical pain than what's up here.
That's all really quite sad. Is there anything else about the train that you'd like to offer this morning, Eliza? Because I have to get going.
Something, I can't get into the train now, but you know something? We got to start looking out to bullies and troubled children in a different way than we're doing it now.
Hard to argue with that. I do have to get going, though, unfortunately. I'm really late for the break.
I'll give you an update on the situation at a later time. But when the lady before started talking like that, I just... It's a whole different ballgame than restoring a train. It's restoring people's lives. Anyway, thanks, Patty.
Thanks, Eliza. All the best. Bye-bye. Just before we get to the break, information for Michael Boyle and anyone else out there who's curious. The Stations of the Cross from the Church of Mount Pearl are actually being displayed, courtesy of the Nova Scotia businessman who bought them at auction, at Our Lady of Mercy Heritage Church, Port West. So there you go. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Say good morning to the Mayor of Badger. That's Dennis Butt. Mayor Butt, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How you doing?
Excellent today. Thank you. How about you?
I'm good, thanks.
What's the update?
The update from a fire standpoint as it relates to our community is that there's no risk. The fire is still active by all accounts, but there's zero risk to our community, which is great news.
So between the cooperation of the weather and the hard work done from the air and on the ground, absolutely great news. So what's the air quality concerns that people in the area might have?
From that aspect, there's no concerns. Even when the fire was at its peak, the information and updates we were getting from climate control was that there was very minimal impacts. Now the levels were increasing a small amount, but that was during the peak of the fire. So, since then to now, I wouldn't anticipate any issue from a air quality standpoint for our residents.
Mayor Budd, I don't know if this happened in your community, but we hear these stories every now and then. An evacuation alert becomes an evacuation order, and not everyone abides by it. Did everyone abide by it in Badger?
No, unfortunately not. And I guess individual residents, we had a small amount of individuals who didn't comply with the original orders for the evacuation in the state of emergency, but we had constant contact with these individuals, patrols, RCMP are on the ground, highly recommending that they follow the orders, and that's first and foremost because of the safety of the residents, as well as safety of the first responders. If we had to go back and do a second sweep, a second evacuation, that puts everyone in harm's way for no apparent reason. But, individuals have their own reasons for wanting to stay back, and by all accounts, the individuals that chose to stay back, we still recommended that they leave. We wouldn't in support of their decisions, but these individuals were mobile. These are individuals who were packed up, and they're ready to go in a second's notice, similar to if we had been evacuated ourselves.
Yeah, there's always going to be people who will just ignore it, but it does put those who will maybe have to go fetch them in harm's way, so that's unfortunate. Any other update that we should know about here inside your town?
No, not from the fire standpoint. I know yesterday or on Saturday, there was some flare-ups, hot spots, water bombers were on scene. So I guess with all residents back in town and actually able to see that in action, there was, some stressful moments. I guess individuals curious about whether or not it was going to reignite and be risk to the community. But that's not the case. And as well, yesterday, some hot spots. So you're going to get that. We knew that when the evacuation order was lifted, that it would probably be a week or even longer. I guess there's no specific time frame that the fire would still be burning and crews on the ground to assist. But Patty, just the fact that, seeing individuals back in the community, back in their routines, mowing their lawns, kids out playing on their bikes, and the fact that everyone's doing that with zero damage to the community, zero damage to personal property, that just speaks and is a testament to everyone on the ground as well as in the air, because those pilots of the bombers do tremendous work, and we can't thank everyone enough, as well as individuals who weren't first responders but aided in any way possible to ensure that all the needs were met. Just the overwhelming support. I can't thank everyone enough, and I can't list everyone because it's just too many on your airways, but we're forever grateful, and we just can't say thanks enough.
I'm sure they appreciate that, sir. I appreciate the update this morning, Mayor Butt. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, and have a great day.
Same to you. Bye-bye. Final thoughts this morning, go to line number 2. Good morning, John Devine. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you?
Excellent. How about you?
Not too bad, boy. It's a long, hard weekend when it takes all year to plan this stuff, But I'm calling on behalf of Nevaeh's Lemonade Stand, Nevaeh's Angels Foundation. I just want to thank anyone and anybody that had any way, shape, or form that helped us out. The weekend was a really huge success, and we had a ball doing it,
I heard nothing but great things.
Yeah, no, we had a really good time. We raised upwards of $65,000. So, wow. I mean, for 4 or 5 hours, we had a car show. The dunk tank went over really well, But we had a really good time, and one of these days we're going to have the phone list out a few of those corporate sponsors that are helping us out. I don't have the list in front of me right now, but I got to say I want to thank everybody, and on behalf of the Lemonade Stand, that there was lots and lots of people there, and our car show went well. So, it was a good time for everybody. I'm
really glad to hear that, and thanks to everyone who made a donation or even just showed up to take part in the fun, and certainly for you and Stephanie and everyone else who's the horsepower behind it. Bravo.
Yeah, and it's not only about Nevaeh. It's about all the kids that are sick right now. There are some again, and there's some that. There's more than Nevaeh passed away, and we think about all these kids, and we don't, I know we do think about our granddaughter, but you sit back and you think and say, my God, like a lot of the friends that she met while in the hospital, they passed away also, you know what I mean?
I do.
It's not easy.
No, it's not, but good on you and everyone else for who attended and for put it off. Brilliant stuff, John. Stay in touch, buddy.
Certainly will. You take care. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands, and we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.